Good morning. This is VirtualPBX dash admin training. It's just a little before 10 o'clock, so I'll give people another minute or so to jump in and join us. I'm also making sure that the audio stream is coming through properly. We're here Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific. We go over all the Dash features. Now, you can make use of the chat feature to ask any questions about a feature as I'm going over it. The training lasts about an hour and a half or so. Feel free to leave, come back later. That's fine. We do record these trainings, so you can always come back and view the whole thing at your leisure, or whatever time it works best for you. Obviously, you could go back to future or past trainings and view those as well. It also makes it easier because there's a link that you can send to colleagues if they need to go through this at some point. All right, so it looks like we are officially at 10 o'clock. So here we see our Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. Just look for the blue bar going near the top of the page, and there'll be a login link as well as a support link. Once you're here to log in, we need your email address. Right? So the email address you used to sign up with us or that your admin used to create your user, your password, and then the account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if for some reason you don't know your password, down here towards the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have a forgot your info link. Excuse me. If you click on that, we still need your email address, right? That's the main thing we need. But then down here, we have these two other fields. We need one of these two filled out. Right? So usually the easiest is the account name, right? The company name. But if you know one of the account phone numbers, you could also use that instead. But again, you only need one of these two. Then you click on reset password. You'll be sent an email. It's going to have a link that takes you right to your account page. Right? So it logs you in. You're at your account page. Then you can change your password. Once you change your password, or once you navigate away from that page, it logs you out. And the reason for that is so that way, you can type in, so you have that muscle memory, potentially. But you also have the option here to click on Remember Me. And then you click Sign In. Oops. Let's see here. There we go. Now, we're using a test account that I have logged into several times. So for me, on my login, it's taking me right here to our dashboard page, which just shows a snapshot of what the account is, right? And we'll cover that in a little bit of detail here shortly. But for you, or for anyone logging in for the first time, it actually doesn't take you to your dashboard page right off the bat. And instead, it takes you to your user account page. Now, you can always get to your user account page by clicking on your name up at the top right. And here, right, this is where you change your password if you needed to. All right, and then click on Save Changes. Now, as an admin, over here on the left, you also have the account level, right? The most common thing that's changed is typically the time zone and language, right? Typically time zone. But this is so that way your timestamps are correct. Now, this is a test account. So on your accounts, you have another section under where it says user here on the left. Below that, there's going to be a billing section. This is where you would change things like your credit card information. You could check your service plan, see your previous invoices, as well as see who's the billing contact, right? So the person who's getting the invoices, and that's actually the person who actually has ultimate control of the account. And you can edit that information as necessary. So once you're done on either the user page or the account page, you just click on the close box up here to the top right. I should also let you know that first time you log in, the wizard will come on, so you have little pop-ups telling you what certain things are. So it's worthwhile to read that first time through. Now, here we're on our dashboard. The wizard will pop up here as well. It also pops up on the user tab and on the groups tab. But here we see a snapshot of our system. Now, again, up here at the top right, You click on your name to get back to that account page. For most of you, to the right of your name, there'll be a D&D toggle or switch. If you click on it, it'll make it look white, or mostly white. And that just means you've turned on Do Not Disturb. Right? So your calls aren't going to be offered to your devices. At most, they're going to get to your voicemail. The reason I don't have it is because my user is part of an ACD queue, and those two features do not work well together. To the right, now we have the little question mark or help icon, and you have potentially up to 4 menu options here. So first one here, chat with us. This will open up a chat window at the bottom right of your screen, so you can talk to a support person, and they can walk you through setting up a guide or a feature or setting up a VoIP phone. Learn more. This opens up a new tab. It takes you to our support pages, so you can look at our individual guides yourself, right? There's screenshots, instructions, etc. Some of them have videos. The online store, this takes you, again, opens a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you would order things like a VoIP phone or a router, etc. And then possibly you may have the web phone. The web phone only shows up after you've added a web phone to your user. Right? So once you've added a web phone to your user, should be the next time you log in. The web phone link will be here. When you click on this, it opens a new tab. It takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. Has a login page, right? It uses your dash login, right? So same email address, same password, same account name. The web phone allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. Right? So it's another kind of VoIP phone. Here we got the hamburger icon or menu icon, right? 3 horizontal lines. This will take you to other dash features. Some of these are plan specific, meaning you have to be on the right plan to have them. Others, like ACD queues, are an add-on to specific plans. So anything like that, I'll make sure to highlight so you know. That's why it may not show up on your screen when you go here. And then lastly, we have the logout icon. Now here in the center, total users, right? These are all my staff members. These are people who make and receive calls. I have 21 of them. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So odds are the more users you have, the higher your bill is. Then we've got total devices. I have 38, and then a breakdown. So first up, I have a soft phone. Soft phone is a software application that acts like a phone, right? So it uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? Dash was designed with VoIP phones in mind, which is just that, using your internet connection to make and receive calls. Soft phone, this bucket here, right? I've got 17 of them. This includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app. This includes a third-party soft phone. Right? Just to generalize soft phones, that's how many you have. Web phone, right? People use Chrome or Firefox. And just another subdivision. Web phone is technically a kind of soft phone. It was developed later. Right? Soft phones have been around for a long time, basically since VoIP started. Web phones, relatively recent. Right, then we got cell phone, right? Most of you are probably familiar with that. And then SIP phone, which is a physical piece of hardware, right? It's a phone that sits on your desk. Again, still connects to your internet, makes and receive calls. There are several kinds of VoIP phones on the market in terms of the protocol they use. SIP is the one that we and a lot of our competitors make use of to handle your call traffic. So when you're shopping, that's the thing to look for. Make sure it says your phone you're looking at is SIP compliant or SIP compatible. If it says something else, it won't work. Unless you do maybe with a firmware update, maybe. Then I have unregistered devices, saying I have one, and that's in relation to my SIP phones. So one of those SIP phones is not currently connected. I don't know why at this point. The system is saying, hey, I can't send calls to this device. It's not connected to us. Maybe it's not plugged in. Maybe someone, changed ISPs and they're still fiddling around with their network settings. Something like that. Total numbers, I have 29. These are phone numbers on the account. This does not have to deal with any cell phones I've added. right? This is just phone numbers my customers can call to reach my company. These are main numbers. These are, conference room numbers, fax box numbers. So first, we have a couple of breakdowns. First is assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned numbers means you're using it, right? Someone can dial that number and speak to somebody, leave a voicemail, send a fax, or join a conference, right? Spare number, it's on your account, so it counts towards your allotment. You're just not using it right now. Someone dials it, they're going to get a busy. This could be, let's say you were in the US, you were just running a 4th of July promotion on a specific phone number. And now that it's no longer the 4th of July, you don't want to get calls on a promotion that's not running, so you put that number in spare. Now, right, customers still know your main numbers. They can still call in and they can still ask about said promotion, but at least the number dedicated to it is no longer in use. All right, next breakdown is US DID and US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? An 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. US DID just means a US local phone number, right? So a number in San Jose, California shows up here, right? As well as, say, a number in Grapevine, Texas would also show up here. You can have international numbers. If you're interested in that, you'd want to contact our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They'll confirm if we can get a number for that city and country, and then any additional requirements that that country has. Right? It's going to vary from country to country. Right. Conference bridges. This just means I have enabled the conference bridge feature on 3 of my users, right? So I have 3 people who host or moderate conference. Now, towards the top right here, my main number box. These are all my main numbers. So these numbers all behave the same way. Right? Looks like I have 5 of them. They have the same main greeting. They're all going to the same location. Right? So these are your general numbers, basically speaking. Conference number, and I think I clicked something too hard. Yep, let's go back. So you can have multiple conference room numbers. This is a phone number everyone calls to join a conference room. Right? Staff members, vendors, customers, they're all dialing it, and then the system will ask them for the conference room number and PIN number. The fax box number, this is your inbound fax number for your account. Right? So your main inbound fax number. You can only currently have the one. All right, company directory, this downloads a CSV file to your device, and it has your users, their names, their extensions, and their devices. The soft phone directory, this is for use specifically for the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. So on a Mac or Windows PC, right? You have our soft phone app, you download this file and then upload it to the soft phone app directly. It will then allow you to see the status of the other soft phones on your account, right? So if everyone's just using the VirtualPBX soft phone app, then you know what their status is, whether they're on the phone or, available to take a call, right? Now, if you have users who have multiple devices, you're not going to see the status of those other devices. Store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use within this the store.virtualpbx.com site. And then we have the account realm. Account realm is used in a couple of things, right? It's unique for each account, and it's used for programming a third-party soft phone. It's one of the 3 pieces of information we provide that you would need. The other thing is used for sending out a fax. So for Dash, to send out a fax, you create an email like you normally do, right? Whatever email client you use, you create a new message. In the to field, instead of putting your coworker Mike's email address, right? You would clear that out. Instead, you would +, the number 1, area code and phone number, the @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file, and then click send, right? So the system looks at the to field, looks at the from field, it looks at the attachment. It doesn't look at the subject line. It doesn't look at the body of the email. And it will only fax out 1 attachment per email. So if you have multiple attachments, one of them will go through, the others won't, and you won't know which one is which. All right, up here we have the company caller ID, labeled just caller ID up here at the top. So here, this pull down, which unfortunately doesn't work. Excuse me. But you select one of your main numbers. Then this is optional, the company caller ID name. This allows you to input 15 characters, including special characters and spaces, that will go out with your outbound caller ID, right? So this is that phone number you select here. This becomes the default phone number for a lot of features. The main one being when you make an outbound call with a VoIP phone, that's the default number the system uses to send out as your outbound caller ID. Additionally, this then allows you to add text as part of the outbound caller ID. And then we have the company emergency information, or E911, well, it's a North American address. So if you change this, the system will require, if you change the phone number at the top, then the system will require you to enter the information here for the E911. You click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, if you filled out the company caller ID name information, the system will transmit that to the other carriers who support the CNAM feature. There are many things to note about the CNAM feature. First and foremost, it does not work with toll-free phone numbers. Toll-free phone numbers were not designed initially to take inbound calls. They were just an outbound number. They were designed initially to take inbound calls only, not for outbound purposes. So they were never designed with the ability to accept outbound CNAM information. The other thing to keep in mind is not every carrier that your calls can route through supports CNAM. Now, it's a very small subset of carriers in general. Usually they're in a specific region. It's something that they decided not to support. They could change that at any time. It's not something we can control. Probably the most important thing to keep in mind, though, is when you're making a test call, say, to a cell phone, right? So you pick up your VoIP phone, you dial, say, your own personal cell phone. It's possible your CNAM information will not show up when you call your cell phone. First and foremost, as I said, it takes 3 business days for all the carriers to update. So you want to make sure you're after that 3 business day time. But the other thing is the cell phone carriers, they control what shows up on the cell phones on their network, right? So they're the ones who put spam risk, right? Or telemarketer. And in some cases, they want to charge their subscribers an additional fee to have the ability to have company phone numbers, company names show up with the phone numbers. My own carrier, they wanted $10 a month. I'm like, you guys get enough of my money, so I chose not to do that. So something to be aware of when you make calls to cell phone users. Hold music. So on Dash, hold music is defined as after a call has reached a user, and that user has put the caller on hold, right? They press the hold button on their VoIP phone. That's when this file will play. Dash allows you to upload your own media files, .mp3 and .wav. You want to, in terms of file size, you'd want to use mono, but the system will play back stereo files. And you want to keep it under 1 megabyte in size, right? But you click Browse to find the file on your device, click the upload icon, and then click on Save Changes. Now, hours is part of main number. So let's go ahead and just go to main number. So here at the top, we have main company numbers, right? So these are all my main numbers. Now, if I decide I don't want to use any of these, right, I can click Unassign next to them. Here, we'll get rid of those 2. All right, so now I have 3 main numbers. Now, those 2 numbers I just clicked Unassigned next to, right, they're still on my system, right? They're now a spare number, so I can use them someplace else, right? So if a number is assigned and you want to use it someplace else, you have to unassign it first, right? Now, say you just signed up and you didn't select a number when you first signed up with us, so now you need to add a number to your account. So then you would click up here where it says By Numbers, right? By Numbers is just how the system says add numbers, right? you're not charged for it right off the bat. It just depends on how many phone numbers are included in your plan. But then you have a choice of local and toll-free. So toll-free, you choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with, and then you click on search. And then the system will display available phone numbers with that prefix. Right? So you scroll down, find a number you like, you click add next to it, it adds it to your cart over here to the right, has the phone number here, you trash it if you don't want it anymore. You can add multiple numbers if you're so inclined, right? And then put it back, but then you would click on by numbers. So now this list of numbers that was showing up here, this is dynamic. So now the system is verifying that the number was truly available and then adds it to the account, right? So if I had clicked on here, we'll go to local and so local, you need to know the area code you want a phone number in. Sometimes you will get this message, right? And that just means that area code is exhausted. You may need to use Google, but you would want to look up an overlay area code, right? So 310 is Southern California near LA, right? And I happen to know 424 is the overlay for that area code, right? So they cover the same geographic spot. And also for the big metropolitan areas, you may want to look for nearby area codes if that's workable for you. Now, as I mentioned on the toll-free, this is the dynamic list, meaning I'm actually competing with other people in real time. So let's say I click add next to this one here. And then, my colleague says, hey, the boss says we're going, he's taking us to lunch, let's go, i.e., drop everything, go now, right? Or big meeting, whatever. So I go away, right? I didn't finish this process. I come back, let's say an hour later, and I click on buy numbers. It's possible that someone has bought that number while I was away. So something to be aware of is once you start it, you want to finish it to make sure you get the number that you wanted. Now over here, you have a gear icon. You can adjust the caller ID. Right? So give the outbound CNAM for the phone number, turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM, right? So that way the names show up on your staff members' phones. E911, you can set up the E911 address for every phone number on your account. This then allows you to assign these specific phone numbers for E911 purposes to your VoIP phones so they can have different addresses that hopefully correspond to where that phone is physically located. Right? So that way when someone picks up and dials 911, the right address is displayed to emergency services. Prepend is a VoIP feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones to give them an idea what the call might be about. So like if this is a new location, right, I could type in new location, save changes, and now the words new location will show up as part of the caller ID that shows up on my staff members' VoIP phones. All right, once you have main numbers, you can set up your office hours strategy. By default, for new accounts, you start off at 24-hour open office. Oops. Right, meaning, hey, the system's ready to take calls all the time. Right, but you can choose to have custom office hours. If you do that, for each day of the week that you're open, you want to put a check mark in front of it. And then in these boxes here to the right, you want to set up your open hours in 24-hour / military time. Now, down here at the bottom, you also have the capability to say, hey, we all go to lunch at the same time. So we're just, we're closed for lunch, right? So you would put a check mark here and put your lunch hours again in that 24-hour or military time. And then click on Save Changes. Next up, we have office holidays. First, you need to decide, are you closed for holidays or not? Right? If you're not, you leave it unchecked. Right? If you are, you put a check mark here. Then over here to the right, add holiday. You click here. You have single day, date range, and advanced. Each one of those creates a new row. And like here, we have New Year's Eve. You give it a name. So for single day, right? You give it a name. you select the month and the date, right? Click on Save Changes. Date range, like I have here for Xmas break, give it a name, start date, end date. Notice there's no year indicator for any of these. So you want to be careful about, holidays that change their date, like Memorial Day, right? Typically the date itself changes. Um, and you just don't want to have it like skip, re-update it right after it passes and then you're closed 2 days in a row, right? For the date range, we advise not having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. In the past, that caused a problem. It doesn't anymore, but just to be safe, we just still recommend just don't do that. Advanced is like we have here for Thanksgiving, where I gave it a name, I choose the month, and then this middle pull down, you have choices of 1st through 5th, as well as last, and then the day of the week. Right? And then any changes you make, you just click on Save Changes. There's a little trash icon next to any of these, so you can get rid of them if you no longer need them. All right, now we have incoming call handling. And this is how your system is going to handle calls that come in on your main numbers, right? So I've got those 5 main numbers up here, and I have these sub-tabs. I have open hours, I have lunch hours, I have after hours, and holidays. I go back to office hours strategy. If I remove the lunch hours, and then we come back to incoming call handling, now I don't have that lunch hours tab. Right. But so during each of these times of day, how are calls coming in on your main numbers being handled? And you have these 4, you have either 3 or 4 options. Most new accounts have 3 right off the bat. So first one is call comes in, goes to your virtual receptionist. This is a link that you can click on. Opens up a new window. Over here on the left, we have our main menu, right? This is what people press to navigate through the phone system, right? 0 through 9 and the star key. You also have a default action. You click here for add route to give yourself that first option, right? 0 through 9, star key, dash, or default action. And then you have the second pull down. We're telling it, where does that option go, right? So in this case, I have it going to a front desk, which I know by the icon here, it's 3 people. It's kind of hard to see, but that's a group. But anyway, let's go up here to the top. So first up, Smart PBX directory. That's the dial by name directory or user directory, right? You can send a menu option to a specific person. It will ring their phones, and whatever features or user features you have. If you're making use of ACD queues, you can make a menu option go to a call queue. You can send calls to a specific device, meaning a specific phone. This isn't always recommended just because if that phone doesn't have someone to pick up or built-in voicemail, right, then the person can be ringing forever. You can have a menu option go to a media file, just basically displays like information, right? So like your hours of operation could be a menu option. Now, once the media file stops playing, the call ends. So something to be aware of there. Groups, like I have by default up here, my front desk group, but these are groups of people, departments. All right. Advanced call flows. This is if you have an advanced call flow set up. So like a secondary auto attendant would be here or could be here. And then lastly, you can send callers to a voicemail box. Now, over here on the right, we have our greetings. These are your greeting options. First up is text-to-speech. You can type in your greeting that you want the system to say, right? It uses a synthesized, right, computerized voice. You would type in your greeting, you would click update, save, and save changes. Now, once you click update, the system saves the file and reuses the same file name for every text-to-speech greeting for this time of day, right? So we're my open hours. So it would save the file name as main open hours menu TTS. If I come back, right, I make a test, I'm like, oh, that didn't sound right, right? I can edit the greeting, right? Just retype it in, I click update, it saves, now I'll have 2 files named main open hours menu TTS And if I ever look at them at a pull down, I'm not going to be able to know which one is which. My recommendation is if you're making use of text-to-speech, after you create that first one, go to your greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly, and rename the file, just so that way you know what it is. Right? You can name it main greeting 1. And so that way you know it's the first one you made. The text-to-speech greeting is limited to about 250 characters, not words, characters. It does not count spaces, though. So that gives you a little bit more wiggle room. Up here, next up, you can upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, under 1 megabyte. Right. Click on Choose File, find it, and then click Update, Save, and Save Changes. You can choose from existing recordings. This pull down will show all of your media files, whether they're main greetings, voicemail greetings, or things you use for hold music. So again, you want to have names that you can easily recognize. You can record it over the phone. Now, by default, recording over the phone, this line right, whoops, right? When it says pick up a phone, register to this account, what it means is pick up a VoIP phone on the account. You would dial your main number. Like, let's say you just signed up with us. When you dial your main number, by default, you're going to hear a message saying, the greeting for this menu has not been set up. It will then prompt you to enter in the PIN number. Right? And the PIN number is specific to the time of day. So for my open hours, I can only use this PIN number during my open hours. Right? So if I called in after 8 p.m., right? So I've been closed for a couple hours and I try to use my open hours PIN number, the system won't recognize it. Now, let's say you don't have, let's say you just signed up with us, you ordered VoIP phones, they haven't arrived, right? Because literally you can start setting up the day you sign up, but if you ordered VoIP phone from us, right, they need to get to you. You can still record over the phone, but just under settings, you want to look for this one here. Allow outside recording, you want to turn that on, right? Save changes. Now, with that setting turned on, you can call in and change your main greeting with a cell phone or a landline. You'll still need to know the PIN number, right, and still be at the right time of day, but you can record it over the phone with your cell phone or landline. Now, let's say you've been using the system for a little while, you've had a greeting in place, and you need to change it. You can still call in and change it over the phone, right? Like when you call in, you hear the main greeting play. When that main greeting is playing, you enter in the PIN number. The system will recognize it and then walk you through recording a new greeting over the phone. Now, one thing to be aware of, when you record over the phone, the system doesn't allow you to choose a file name or change the file name, right? So when you record over the phone, it's just recording, you're recording over the existing greeting that's already playing, right? And that can be important, especially coming around holiday time if you're in a rush. Next up, we have professional recording services. When you click order, it's going to open a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, where you can use them to basically hire a professional voice actor to record a greeting for you. They have their own packaging and, their own packages, excuse me, and their own billing, right? They bill separate from us. They deliver to you via email, and then you would simply just upload your own file. Settings, these first two are somewhat related, right? So number of retries on missed dial and dialing timeout. So basically what this number of retries on missed dial is how many times the inbound caller can make a mistake. Dialing timeout is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes the person's done, right? So caller calls in, here's the main greeting, and let's say they press 7. Right? That's not a current menu option. And we'll say for the sake of this exercise, I don't have an extension 7. The system waits a count of 5. It says, oh, they meant extension 7 or menu option 7, neither of which is valid. So then it goes to my number of retries. It says, oh, they get 1 retry. So now the greeting will play again. Say the inbound caller presses 8. The system waits for a count of 5. Nope. Okay, no additional digits. There's no menu option 8. And now the system says we don't recognize your entries and either sends the caller to the default action if one exists. If one does not exist, then it ends the call. Now, the reason for a default action, right, it gives a way for callers to still get through to somebody somewhere, right? If I chose the pull down to go to a person, for example, right, it would still ring to that person. The downside of a default action would be robodialers, right? Robodialers, they're not going to pick a valid menu option. So eventually they get to your default action, and that's just using up your minutes on your plan. So to remove one of these main menu options, right, just click on the X here to the right of it. All right, we already touched on outside recording. So now allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. And all that means is when the inbound caller calls in, they enter an extension number, right, say a 3 or 4-digit extension number. The system will accept it, transfer the call as long as it's a valid extension number. If I turn that off, right, click save and save changes, now my inbound caller is restricted to my menu options only. Even if they know the extension number they want to reach, the system won't let them go through. That's treated as an invalid entry. And then lastly here, I have suppressed the playing of the invalid entry message. So after that second retry, if the system by default again says we did not recognize your entry, and based on my current setup would say goodbye. If I don't want that message to play, I turn that on. And then click on save. So let's go back here real quick. Any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or these settings, right? You need to click save, and then you need to click save changes here under incoming call handling. All right, second option here, call is offered to Aaron and then sent to my virtual receptionist. Now we're still under my open hours. So this virtual receptionist, the one we were just looking at, right? If I change it to after hours, go here, click on virtual receptionist, right? Different. In fact, I would need to have some kind of menu option set up. Now, this is a pull down, so you can select any of your users. You can send it to a specific device. In this case, that's not such a bad idea because it's only going to ring for 20 seconds before it sends the call to the virtual receptionist. You can have a media file play. I don't normally recommend this for this setup just because you set up where your inbound caller can hear 2 greetings back to back. That could confuse people or frustrate them. Groups, again, a department, so you can have multiple people be offered the call. And then any of your advanced call flows if you have them. So like in this case, calls are being offered to say my entire front desk ring group. They're not able to pick up, then the callers would go to the virtual receptionist. So this is a live operator answer option. This third option here, call is offered to a user and then to a specific voicemail box. Right, again, users, call queues, devices. Again, it's only going to ring a device for 20 seconds. Media file. All right, ring groups, or call flows, as well as skip to voicemail, and then you choose the voicemail box. All right, so for instance, let's say you're a seasonal business, right, and the season ends. You can choose this last option and then say, hey, skip to voicemail, and then send calls to a specific voicemail box. All right, and then this fourth option here, this is to send callers to one of your advanced call flows. This only shows up is if our team has created an advanced call flow for you, or you have set up, you have secondary auto attendance set up to be available in main menu. Right now, the auto attendance is a plan-specific feature, which we're about to get to. So, but the advanced call flows might be something we've had to set up for you for like your queues, for example. All right, your main conference number, you can add from spare by new, so you can have multiple conference numbers if you wish. And then you also have the customized greeting. When you click enabled, you can do a text-to-speech greeting, again, 250 characters. But even without this enabled, right, the system still says welcome to the conference and prompts the caller to enter the conference room number. The main fax box, you can only have the one main fax box number. So if I didn't have this phone number here, I'd have the option to buy a new or add from spare. But once you've added that number, right here, you can click on Edit Fax Box. And then you've got these two things to think about here. First one is the inbound notification. Basically, you put an email address, and that email address gets an email every time a fax comes through. Right? In the body of the email, right, they'll have the date, the time, the phone number involved. There'll be a PDF attachment that they can then click on to view the fax. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if someone dials your fax box number, right, hears those fax tones and hangs up, this email address is going to get an email saying, hey, there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, obviously, if you were expecting a fax and you get that email that there was a failed fax attempt and it's the phone number you're expecting the fax from, you'd want to double check with them to see what happened. But again, if you're getting notifications and you're not expecting faxes and you don't recognize the phone numbers, good chance it was someone who just dialed the wrong number. The email permissions, this is set up or designed to put your email domain, right, your company email domain here. So that way anybody in your company can send a fax out, even if they're not a Dash user, because they just need the proper format and the right email. All right, auto attendance, plan specific feature. Right, this allows you to create secondary or additional auto attendance. And you would want additional attendance for a couple of reasons. One would be for submenuing, right? So you want to do like 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. Well, when calls come into your main number, right, you would give them that options. For English, press 1. For Spanish, press 2. You'd probably have an additional message in Spanish saying that. When your caller presses 1 or 2, with submenuing, then you would create an attendant, 1 for English and 1 for Spanish. Like I have a Spanish one created here. Right? This attendant would have its own greeting in Spanish in this case, and the menu options would go to my Spanish-speaking staff members. Right? This is called submenuing. The other reason you would want it to do this is if you own or run several small businesses, right? So each business has its own phone number or phone numbers and their own main greeting, right? But the calls come in, they go to the same staff people, right? So you have a dog walking business and a cleaning business, right? Same staff people are answering calls for both. You'd obviously want to have different phone numbers and different main greetings. Now, up here at the top, you click Add Attendant, you give it a name and an extension number. The extension number is not something your customers are necessarily going to know, but your staff members can use it to transfer calls from one business to another. Right? Then you click on Create Attendant. Once an attendant is created, you can click on its name, and you have to decide, by default, it stays as unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone business. Now you can click on that to say it's available in main menu, meaning it's a submenu option. Right? You click on Save Changes. Like where I have for Spanish, I have that as available. Now, attendants can have their own phone numbers, and they can have multiple. Right? You have that little gear icon here, so you can do the caller ID, etc. Extensions, right? They have their own extension numbers. If you want to change an extension number for anything, I recommend adding the new extension number first, right? Clicking Save Changes. So temporarily you'll have 2, right? After you click Save Changes, you come back here and then unassign next to the original extension and then click Save Changes. And then lastly, you have the settings icon here, the little wrench, and you click it here. Now you notice you have I have open hours, after hours, and holidays. This will match what we already set up under main menu, right? So your auto attendants have to have the same hours of operation and holidays as your main business or whatever you set up under main number. But these all have the same option of going to the virtual receptionist. So again, you set up the menu options, you set up your greetings and your settings, and then save and save changes. Next up, we have devices. This shows all your devices on the account. Red means it's unregistered, so we can't send calls to it. Black means you turned it off on our dashboard. And then green means it's registered, so we can send calls to it. Now, up here at the top, you click Add Device, and you can add new devices. First up is SIP phone, which is that physical phone that sits on someone's desk. You can click on the manufacturer to see what models are supported, right? Some have a lot, some not as many. But you would click on the make and model of the phone that you're working with. First up, you give it a name, right? So I normally say the person's name and then the word phone, right? So Angela's phone, right? Or the location, break room phone. Right? Then we need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each device. It's often a sticker on the back of the device itself, but you can also typically find it under like its basic settings or its status. There'll be something called MAC for MAC address. And you would enter that information here, click on Create Device. So in the dashboard, after you create device, the only other thing you need to do would be go to the users and assign it to a user. But in terms of and after that, as far as the dashboard is concerned, you're basically done. You will need to access the phone's web user interface, right? The web UI, and enter in a web address. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here to get your configuration file. It will download the file. It's going to reboot a couple times, and then it should show up as a green device. For the specifics of that URL, right, and the screenshots for these various manufacturers, you want to go to our support pages, and you want the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. Right, so we have the screenshots for the various manufacturers, the proper syntax for the URL, because it changes slightly depending on which manufacturer you're dealing with. Usually some other settings to double check. Cell phone and landline are basically the same, right? First up, you give it a device name, right? Again, Angela's phone, right? And then number. You put +, the number 1, area code and phone number, then you click on Create Device. Click on this one down here. Click on the wrench icon. So here's a cell phone, right? Demo device, +1 area code and phone number. I click on Advanced and then select Options. This is the default settings for a newly added cell phone or landline. In terms of how Dash handles that, right? Call comes in, goes to your user, and then goes to your cell phone, right? So your cell phone starts ringing. When you pick up, you'll hear, by default now, the system will come on and say, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there. Yes, you want to take this call. And then connects the inbound caller to you. You begin speaking. That's great if it's going to a phone where a person is there to actually interact. If, for instance, you added a cell phone, but it's actually going to an automated answering service, right? Because you want something to answer your calls after hours. Then, well, that automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1, right? So we send a call, we never get that 1 tone, the call never connects, right? Your customer gets frustrated. You either get, angry customer yelling at you later, or maybe lose business. So what you would do in that scenario is this one up here, where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail. Put a check mark up here, and then click on Save Changes. So now when we offer a call to this phone number, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? There's no need to press 1. In fact, that message doesn't even play. It just, we hear that pickup, we just send the call, pickup tone, call connected. Your automated answering service takes over. Now, let's say I actually added my cell phone here, and I had it with this setting. And so my cell phone rings, I'm not able to pick up, but my cell phone voicemail picks up. That's a pickup tone. So our system hears that, it sends that inbound caller into my personal cell phone's voicemail box. Some people want that, some people don't. So that's something to be aware of. This other setting here that comes into play is this one here, which is keep original caller ID. So by default, right, call comes in, gets offered to your cell phone. We'll say customer Mary is calling. On your cell phone, by default, you're going to see customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it. You're tired of these extend my auto warranty robodials, or maybe your state is about to have a primary and you're just getting hammered with all sorts of political calls. So you just let the call go to voicemail, and instead of being able to speak to customer Mary because you didn't know it, you thought it was a robodialer, she goes on to one of your competitors and you're not able to connect with her after she left her voicemail. So what you would do is uncheck this one here, right? Keep original caller ID, click Save Changes. So now what shows up on your cell phone, instead of its customer Mary's phone number, go back to our dashboard. Under our caller ID, it's this, whatever phone number you selected here as your company caller ID number, that's the phone number that shows up on your cell phone. So hopefully you would recognize your main number and you would answer the call. Say, hey, this is a business call. This is worthwhile. Soft phone. Now on the devices page, when you add a soft phone, you're only allowed to add a third-party device, right? Meaning you're using a soft phone application from someone else, right? Not VirtualPBX. But you give it a name. You'd want to copy and paste the SIP username. Click on the SIP password box to reveal the SIP password, so then you can copy and paste that. And then you want to copy and paste the realm. Those are the three pieces of information you would need to program or provision your third-party soft phone. And then you click on Create Device. And again, you would need to assign it to a user. And most of these others we can skip for now. Another thing to be aware of is you can click on the wrench icon here next to a phone. And under advanced, like for codecs, for physical VoIP phone, you want to have the G711A and G711U. You could also add Opus, but strictly speaking, most VoIP devices don't need that. Except for the VirtualPBX soft phone. That's best to use with Opus. External caller ID, you can select one of your different phone numbers to be the outbound caller ID for this phone. All right, here's the emergency information. So again, you can select the specific phone number on your account with a specific address. Miscellaneous, the main thing that ever comes up here is this last one, the allow reprovision. You just click unlock. All right, Greetings Manager. This shows all your media files on the account, right? Hold music, main greetings, voicemail greetings. You'll see the name and then the source, right? Upload means you uploaded it. TTS means it's text to speech. Recording means you recorded it over the phone. You can click underneath here, right, this icon here, to download the files. That way you can listen to it and see if it's still relevant. And then the wrench icon, you can rename the file so it's something to recognize, or just delete the file if you don't need it. Groups, sometimes referred to as ring groups or hunt groups, right? These are departments. Up here at the top, you click Add Group. You give it a name and an extension number. And when it says find one, that means you want to use an extension. It has to be a unique extension number, right? You can't reuse extensions. Then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. And then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name. So you can always change the name. All right. And then you have these group call attempts. This is basically how many times the system will offer calls to your group members. The little arrows here to the right So you can increase or decrease it as you see fit. And then click on Save Changes. Oh, I should also point out, this is also where you would delete a group if you no longer need it. Next up, we have the members box. This shows all your members and how the calls are being offered to them. So this setup here is called blast ringing or ring all. So a call comes in, it rings everybody at once. Now, for calls that come into a group, right? The groups don't care what devices is being used, right? Cell phone, landline, VoIP phone, doesn't matter. Now, if your user has multiple devices and they get a call from the group, all of their devices are going to ring. Right? There's a user feature called Follow Me where you can set up, cell phone rings, web phone rings, and then these, there's VoIP phone, right? They can have timestamps for each one, so it doesn't ring them all at once. The call from the group ignores that feature. Just says, nope, ringing all your phones until you pick up. Likewise, on this kind of setup here, let's say, first call comes in and Aaron picks up, right? So he's talking to a customer, helping them out. As he's on that call, if a second call comes into the group, right, he will hear a call waiting beep on his phone if his phone supports call waiting until one of the other staff members picks up. Now, that means Aaron can go into his phone and disable call waiting, so that way he won't hear that beep. Probably more easy if he's got a dedicated phone for work versus, say, his personal cell phone. Now, you can change the order easily up here by clicking Distribute. Right? These are sliders, so you can click and drag them to adjust, how you see fit. Up here at the top, this is your timestamps. So you can change the total ring time, for instance. Or maybe I can't. Hold on. Oh. There we go. I wasn't actually changing it. Now, in this case, obviously, I would have to adjust the sliders here. Or just click Distribute. Now, right, this means calls come in, they ring Aaron, then David, then Michael, then Peter, then Gio. Let's say Aaron has a project I want him to work on. I can click and drag his name to the bottom. Now he's still first because he starts at 0, but then I just click Distribute, and now he's last. Over here to the right, you can remove members, right? So they're no longer part of this department. Down here at the bottom left, you can click Add User to add someone else. But then any changes you make, you click on Save Changes. Groups can have extensions. They can have multiple ones if you want them to. Groups can also have their own phone numbers, right? So you can buy new or add from spare. Now, for phone numbers that are not main numbers or an auto attendant number, right? They don't have hours of operation. They are available to call 24/7. And then we have group features. So ringback. So when a call comes in to your group, right, we then send it over to your users. Their user's device starts ringing. That ringing sound then gets piped back to your inbound caller, right? So they hear something. If you don't want that ringing sound, then you can enable ringback, right? And then you need to upload a file, right? .wav, .mp3 under 1 megabyte. So this that ringing sound is replaced by whatever file I either select from the pull down or upload. Now, the duration of this media file needs to meet or exceed my total ring time for my group. Right? So in this case, I'm actually only ringing for 27 seconds. So my ringback file only needs to be that long. But if it's shorter than that, that can be a problem. Also, if for some reason you're not getting that ringing sound from your user's devices, then nothing will play. So then the inbound caller hears silence. That doesn't happen very often. The big one here, or at least I always recommend, is next action, right? And it's saying, hey, what do you want the system to do if no one picks up? So I recommend enabling it. And then here you have a pull down. Right? You can send it back to your virtual receptionist. You can send it to one of your other advanced call flows. You can send it to a call queue, another device, a different ring group, one of your users, or a voicemail box. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding. Right? So they're not going to be at their desk phone because they're going to be on an on-site thing, but they still want to be able to take calls when they can. And then caller ID prepend. This is your VoIP phone feature. You can add text or phone numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on the calls from this group. Numbers tab defaults you to your numbers in use. This just shows you where the numbers are, right? Like where they've been assigned. You're not able to unassign a number here, but you can adjust the caller ID or the E911, etc. for any phone number. Under spare numbers, right? These are numbers you're not using on your account right now. So if you wanted to remove a phone number, I'll say I won't get rid of this one, right? So I put a check mark here, and now I have the option to delete, right? That just showed up. Confirm it. And now that number is removed from my account. So now I have less phone numbers, which means potentially I have less on my bill. You can buy numbers here, right? Local or toll free, just like we saw under main number. And instead of adding it someplace directly, it adds it here as a spare number. So you can assign, add from spare anywhere else. That would be, for instance, you're going to enter in a new market. And so you want to get those phone numbers ahead of time so that way you can start prepping the marketing materials, etc. Now, in general, my recommendation, whenever you add a number, test the call. Put it someplace that can ring, make a test call, make sure it works properly. That's just to be safe, especially before you start making marketing materials. Port a number will start the port process. And that just means you're moving a phone number from another carrier to us, right? So from AT&T to VirtualPBX, click on new port request, you give it a name, choose local toll free, and now the system wants you to upload a copy of your bill. It's going to ask you for your address. It's going to ask you for the numbers that you want to port. Will allow you to download a blank letter of agency and then upload a completed and signed LOA, letter of agency. There's 4 boxes it wants you to check. Ask you for the email address for the person you want to get notified, as well as do you have a preferred date for the port to complete. The preferred date is something we can request. We can't guarantee it because it's the other carrier, in this case AT&T, that controls that. Once you submit a port request, you'll get an automated email saying, hey, you submitted a port request. Hopefully, usually by the next business day, you'll get another email from our porting team. That means someone's actually looked at your documents and made sure everything's correct, or at least as far as they can tell, is everything will work. Then they submit the port request. For toll-free numbers, typically 3 to 5 business days, if everything is correct. Local numbers, anywhere from 1 business day up to 2 to 3 weeks, right? The average is 2 to 3 weeks. If there's a problem, we get what's called a rejection notice. It's not always specific, right? So let's say there's a problem with the address you submitted. We'll get, hey, there was an address zip code mismatch. Now, some carriers will tell us, hey, the street number is wrong, right? And some will say the zip code is wrong, but they're not obligated to. Now, when we get those kinds of rejections, we double check to make sure we didn't type in something wrong. Right? Or if there's, let's say you have one address on the LOA, but your copy of your bill has a different address, we'll try the second address, right? Just to see if there was a disconnect there. But assuming everything was correct as far as we can tell, then we will let you know saying, hey, we got this rejection for this reason. You're going to want to talk to your current carrier to find out what the correct information should be. All right, users. Shows all the users on the account. The little gray person icon means they're a standard user. Person with the blue suit, that means they can do everything that we've been talking about here. All right, they're system admin. Up here at the top, you click add user. First name, last name, pretty easy. Email address used for login. This needs to be unique for each user. Right, no reusing of email addresses. You create a password for them, and then you enter the extension number you want them to use. The system will suggest an extension for you based on what the first extension is that you assigned. Right, so this was started with 1,000. So it's saying, hey, the next in the series is 1,022. I can change that to whatever I want it to be. Right, handy if like you have multiple businesses, so you can say, hey, business 1, your extension 1,000s. Business 2, your extension 2,000s, etc. All right. Here, create voicemail box with the user. Right, this creates a voicemail box directly for this user specifically. It's intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say I create the user, I add a VoIP phone to them. Right, gets registered. They can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98 on their VoIP phone. That's going to log them directly into this voicemail box you just created for them at the same time. And then the system will walk them through setting up a PIN number for their voicemail box, as well as walking them through setting up their voicemail greeting. Then we have, do you want them to be in the user directory or not? Put a check mark if you want them to be. You can always change that later. Here you have to send emails to an alternate address. So by default, any emails that the system needs to send to the user, it will default to the email address used for login, right? So password resets, voicemail notifications, that sort of thing. If for some reason you or the user doesn't want to use the email address used for login for that, then you would say, hey, you send to an alternate address, and then you put a different email address here. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. I usually recommend putting a check mark here. Now, if you only need to create one user, you click create user, right? If you need to add multiple people, create user and add another. Once a user is added, you can click on their name. All right, you can change their name. Here, you can change their credentials, so you can change their email address or their passwords. You can also send the password reset email. You can set up a temporary PIN number for a user's voicemail box. Here's the option to send to an alternate address. And then here's the option to be in the user directory or not to be. This pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin down to a user. This is your time zone. So that way the voicemail timestamps are correct for the user. This is the display language, English, French, German, or Russian, and that's just for the web pages for that user. Ringing timeout by default is 20 seconds. Now this is grayed out on Aaron here because he has follow me enabled. 20 seconds, typically plenty of time for sending calls to a landline or a VoIP phone. If you have a user that's just using a cell phone, you'd want to increase that to 30, if not 45 seconds. It simply takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does to, say, a landline, right? So when we send a call out to a landline, the landline telecom knows exactly where it is, routes the call. Whereas when we send it out to a cell phone telecom, right, they say, hold on a second, we have to find them first, right? Pinging cell phone towers, then sends it to you. Users can have extensions, right? They can have multiple ones if you want them to. They can have their own phone number and add from spare or buy new. They can have multiple phone numbers. Like you can click on the gear icon to set up the caller ID, E911, etc. Here you can see the user devices. I'm going to go to the soft phone here. So on the user, when you add a soft phone, right, you still get that warning message. We're going to get that big box that shows up with the 3 pieces of information. But you notice down here, it says use third-party application. You click on that, And now you can add a virtual PBX soft phone to a user. You just type in a name, click on create device, and then you will click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, Aaron here will get an email with his credentials for use with the soft phone, right? So the virtual PBX soft phone uses its own login information that's different from your Dash login. Also in that email will be download links for Android, iPhone, and I believe there's a link so you can get either Windows or the Mac OS. Download those files, launch the app, and then use the credentials that were sent to you to log in. I recommend keeping that email in a folder somewhere so that way you can always reference it later, especially if someone's using the cell phone on only, or the app on a cell phone only. Most people upgrade their cell phones every couple of years, so when you switch, you can then still have that login information. The other thing that you can add, or I find easier to add to a user, is the web phone, right? Because the web phone uses your Dash login information, so it needs to be associated with the user anyway. So again, give it a name, click on create device, click on save changes, and then now Aaron can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, use his Dash login, and make use of that. User features, caller ID number is only available for users that have their own phone number. And what this means is when you enable it, right, you select the number or one of their numbers, so they have multiple. That's the phone number that the user will have as their outbound caller ID from their VoIP phones, right? If they don't have their own phone number or you don't enable this feature, then when they make an outbound call from their VoIP phones, it's this 323 phone number or whatever your main number is on your account. Virtual text, it's a new feature of it might be a month old now, maybe even 2. Anyway, you would enable it, you select a phone number. The phone numbers you can select are either a main number or auto attendant number or the user's phone number. You click on save changes, then the user gets an email saying, hey, welcome to virtual text. And it's also an app that you can find on your relevant app stores. But then they can log in and they can send and receive text through whatever number you assign to them. Virtual text also allows you to share numbers. So multiple staff members can handle the inbound and outbound text to customers. I would encourage you to check our virtual text page to see what it can do, just get a better idea. Also, in virtual text, the user will have the same status that they have on Dash, right? So Aaron's a standard user, so he'd be a standard user in virtual text. Whereas Gio here, he's an admin, so he'd be an admin in both. Voicemail box created with the user. This is the standard or default settings. Transcription is a plan-specific feature, right? The system listens to a voicemail, types it out in the email notification. Obviously, if people are not speaking into their microphones or there's lots of background noise, then there might be problems with that transcription. Now, so default call comes in, leaves a voicemail. The system by default will send an email and attach that voicemail message as an MP3 attachment to the email, right? The email is going to include the date, the time, phone numbers involved, extension involved, right? Double click on the attachment and listen to it. Small boxes can hold up to 100 messages. That they're full and will not accept any more. So if staff members are not good about clearing out their voicemail boxes, then you can look at this one here, which is delete the message after the notification is sent out, right? Caller leaves a voicemail, system sends out email with voicemail attachment, then system deletes the voicemail from the voicemail box. What that means is the user can only ever check their voicemails via email, right? So if for some reason they didn't get the email, there's no other way to check for that voicemail, right? So if they're good about removing messages, then you can leave that alone, because then they can check their voicemails over the phone or via the user portal, as well as via email. Follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. In fact, when you first enable it, it looks like this. because you have to tell the system what devices you want to use, right? And then when you uncheck a device, it actually puts it like that. So it has like saying, well, how long do you want it to ring? So, oops, right? So you have that timestamp up here, 120 by default. You can click distribute, and just like groups, you can click and drag and rearrange it, right? And again, sliders, so you can adjust it how you see fit. And then click on Save Changes. Fax box, users can have their own individual fax box if you want them to. Right, so this would be in addition to or instead of the main fax box. You can select the phone number, right? Either buy new, add from spare. You can also choose to assign an extension. Now, the downside or the restriction, I guess, for assigning an extension means that user can only accept inbound faxes. They're not going to be able ever to send out a fax. Right? So if you want people to be able to send and receive, use a phone number. If they're only set up to receive faxes, an extension number is fine, or can be fine. The other thing to be aware of is that means when you use an extension number for the fax box on a user, right? The person who's faxing to them, right, has to call to your main number that goes to virtual receptionist, then enter the extension number, and then send fax, right? On a physical fax machine, that's possible. Like either they can listen in as they're making the call, or in some cases they can, put like a comma or pound, and then the extension number. And then that way their fax machine will enter the phone number, wait a couple seconds for the greeting to start playing, then enter the extension number, and then to send the fax through. For those email to fax services, I'm not aware of any that allow faxing to extensions. So it's another potential limitation to be aware of. Conference bridge. As an admin, once you enable it, the only thing you really need to do is set up a PIN number and then click on Save Changes. But the user can update their PIN number themselves via the user portal. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your users can set up call forwarding themselves, either via the user portal or from their VoIP phones. Failover mode is the only thing as an admin that you would need to set up. And that's where you choose, are you sending it to a desk phone or a or mobile phone, put +1 area code and phone number, click Save Changes. Failover mode just means, hey, when the system detects that their VoIP phones went offline, call comes into the user, the system will automatically forward it to the phone number you just designated. Customized call recording. So your account automatically includes call recording as a feature. You just choose to enable it. After you enable it, you have to tell the system what kind of calls you're recording, right? Inbound internal, that means my coworker Bob called me, right? Inbound external, customer Mary called me. Outbound internal, that means I called coworker Bob, right? Outbound external means I called customer Mary. And then you click on Save Changes. Right, I could do something like that too. Now, your account includes at least some amount of storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you go over that, it doesn't mean you don't get any more recordings. It just means that we charge you an overage for storage. For the specifics of that, you'd want to talk to our account services team. Same for anything that you'd want to change your plan in terms of getting that feature. Music on hold, you can choose to have users have their own hold music. You choose enabled, either find the file, or upload MP3 or WAV under 1 megabyte. Click on Save Changes. Do not disturb. If you turn that on, that means the user is not going to be offered calls. At best, calls would be going to their voicemail. Hot desking is a VoIP feature. You enable it. And this is for you're in like a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling where, let's say Aaron here, he only comes in the office 2 days a week. right? So you don't need a fixed desk and phone for him, right? He's twice a week. That's not worth it. So when he comes in, he sits down at the first available desk, picks up the phone, hits *11. That turns on hot desking. Then he enters in the hot desk ID, right? I usually say, hey, make use of 4-digit extensions, then just use your extension number for hot desk ID. And then the system will tell him the calls will be sent to this device. So rest of his workday, right? He's working away at the desk, calls come into his user at that phone he's sitting at. End of his day, picks up the phone again, hits *12, and that turns off hot desking on that phone. Right, next time he comes in, sits at whatever desk is available again, same thing, right? He's on the phone, *11, hot desk ID, now he's getting phone calls. Voicemail boxes, it shows all the voicemail boxes on the account. The ones that have their name here in the column, that means that's a user created or user voicemail box that was created with the user. You can create your own voicemail boxes up here for use with like your ring groups or queues. You give it a name, voicemail box number, and a PIN number. You click on create voicemail box. Once a voicemail box is created, under advanced, first up is greeting media. You can upload, right, .wav, .mp3 recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. You can select a file that's already on the system as well. Right, so the media file, that's the one that's normally going to play. Right, the temporary is for their out of office or vacation. So if you have something selected in temporary, it plays over anything that's selected under media. Right, once you put temporary back to none, and then the media file plays. And you have the upload option here. Recipients, for your user voicemail boxes, like Mark here, right? This is his voicemail box. He already has a built-in recipient, meaning his email address used for login. But if I want to add someone else, I click add here, and then I add their enter in an email address. And if I only need to add one, I click on save changes. If I need to add multiple, I click add this add button again, and another row appears. And then options. So once a voicemail box has a media file in place and a recipient in place, then you can click on already set up. Down here further, right, these two, that's your options for including the attachment in the email and deleting after notification if you want that enabled. Announce only mode means it's a voicemail box that you're setting just to give out information, right? So it won't accept an inbound voicemail. So like for your hours of operation or directions, you don't want those voicemail boxes necessarily to take messages. You just want them there to give out information. Advanced routing, this is for direct inward system access, or DISA. What DISA does, it allows you to log into your system over the phone, like say with a cell phone or a landline, and then make an outbound call through your system from your cell phone. Now, this feature is not enabled on new accounts that sign up. This is something you'd have to talk to our account services team to get enabled, and then it would show up here. Then you would click enable, and now by default, right, the system assigns a PIN number. This setup means you're setting this up as a menu option under your virtual receptionist or auto attendants. That's not recommended, right? Because you only have so many menu options. Eventually someone could find it by accident. And if they're of that bad actor type of person, they'll try to find out the PIN number, right? And then they can make outbound calls. So I recommend click edit settings. You can change the password to something or the PIN number to something else. But then I say click on add an extension and then create a weird extension number, right? So not part of your normal sequence. And then click Save Changes. So now you call into your main number that goes to the virtual receptionist or auto attendant. And then when you hear the main greeting, you enter in this extension number you created. Then the system prompts you for the PIN number. You'll hear dial tone. Then you enter the area code and the phone number you're reaching out to, and you make an outbound call. Now, And the reason it's not enabled for new signups is because this is a way, once people figure it out, right, they can make calls on your account. You might not know about it until your next invoice, and you might get sticker shock. Now, one thing that can help you with that, though, is call logs. This shows your call history. I'm going to switch to months, and there's a little bit more here. So you can see that when a call came in, right, this call came in, wasn't offered. So let's go custom here. And we'll go back to last month. That's fine. So now I see a fuller history of my calls. And so here I see an outbound call, and I see it came from a VoIP phone. So I know that was a legitimate outbound call from one of my staff members, or at least most likely a legitimate call. Now let's see if I can find a good inbound call. Oh, here's another outbound. Again, it came from a specific device. Here you can see a call came in and then was offered to this device here. So like someone's cell phone, etc. And I can keep scrolling down. Now, each of these tabs, right, you have the option here to delete or download the file, right? So it downloads it as a CSV. So then you can search it. If you're good with spreadsheets, then you can get a lot more information out of the call logs. This little fire hydrant icon here creates an email for you that goes to support.virtualpbx.com. And it just gives the technical details. It doesn't give us anything else. So I do recommend you type in the body of that email saying what happened or what didn't happen, right? So why you're reporting the call. The system here will let you go back up to 1 year for your call logs. If you need to go further than that, our engineers can go back up to 18 months. But after that, the call data is no longer available. If you need your call log data for compliance reasons, I recommend getting them every month, right? Just to make it easier on yourself. All right, feature codes. I've talked about a couple of these. These are just ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This is also a web page on our support pages. There's also a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet that has a brief write-up about how to use each of these features. All right, so that's all the dashboard. And I'm going a little bit long here, so I apologize. But let's go down here. Next up, we have blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone number or multiple lists of phone numbers that you don't want to allow to connect to your system, right? You're blocking them from reaching you. So you click Edit Settings, and then you choose either one of your lists, or you just click Add to create a new list. You give it a name, and then you choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not, right? That means if a caller comes in and we don't get the valid inbound caller ID, and you turn this on, we're blocking them. They get busy tone, right? If you leave this off, that means they can come through. All right, beyond that, you click on where it says add number here, +1 area code and phone number. No parentheses, no dashes, no spaces, just +1 area code and number. And you keep clicking add for each phone number you want to add until you're done. When you're done, you click on save, and then you would click back to settings. And you want to make sure that your active lists are over here on the right under selected, and then you click update. So now any phone number on these two lists, when they try to call any phone number on my account, they get a busy tone. Faxes, this takes you to the fax manager. This is also an included feature. You can check any of your fax boxes to see any faxes that came in. You see the date, the time, phone numbers involved, pages. You can download the file. Right. You can also switch to any other fax box that's on a user. Outbound fax tab, same idea. And you see a failed one here, which is not usually good. Now, when you see a failure under outbound fax tab, that means we had a problem communicating with the other fax machine. If you go over here to the far right, this little icon at the end, this sometimes can give you more information, sometimes it doesn't. And so if you scroll to the bottom, yeah, and so all it says is that success was false, right? So it doesn't tell me anything else. Sometimes you'll see things like premature disconnection, user busy, just means the line was busy, that sort of thing. The email to fax logs tab, this shows you problems the system had in processing the initial request. So we didn't even try reaching out to the fax machine. Right? You see the email address involved, the phone number, right, or the email to, right? So you can make sure it's in the proper format, the date, the time, little eyeball icon here. Click on that. Oh, errors, no valid attachments. Now, that could be that there was no attachment on the email, right? Or it could be something that was other than a PDF or a TIFF file, right? So someone sent a doc file or a JPEG, things of that nature. Oops. Number manager, this just takes you back to spare numbers. Reports, takes you to advanced reporting. It actually opens up a new tab. This is a plan-specific feature. Under our YouTube channel, you want to check under videos. You're looking for the advanced reporting demo. It will show you what that can do. Excuse me. Basically, allows you to create your own reports. Gives you typically more information than the call logs. Voicemails. This takes you to your voicemail manager, and you choose the voicemail box you want to work with. Right, you can see their messages. Now this is as an admin view, so I can see their deleted messages, but as well as their listened or new messages. You see the date, the time. You can play back the message. You can download it. Likewise, if you click on the box in front of it, now I can change its status, or I can move it to someone else's voicemail box. Like, nope, this belongs to someone else. All right, next up, ACD queues. ACD stands for automatic call distribution. Right? It's a call center feature. This is an upgrade to existing plans. You want to double check with our account services team just to make sure you don't need to upgrade your plan, as well as the upgrade fee for the queues themselves. We offer two kinds of queues. This is a standard ACD queues. We also offer ACD queues Pro. Now, accounts can only have one or the other, right? You can't have both, so I can only show you the one. Standard being the most common. We do have on our YouTube channel an ACD queues Pro demo, so I recommend taking a look at that if ACD queues are something you're interested in. But basically, the idea is queues allow you multiple users to handle calls about this, similar issues, but with more advanced routing options than you had under groups. You click add queue. In this case, I'm just going to click on the gear icon here on an existing queue. Right, so you give it a name, and then you choose a phone number or extension number for the group. Right, you can have one or the other, but not both. Right, another difference from groups. Right, groups can have both an extension number and a phone number. Queues can only have one or the other. The other big current restriction on queues is right now you can only accept queue calls with a VoIP phone. Right, so a SIP device, soft phone, app, or even the web phone, but no cell phones, no landlines. Queue routing strategy. This pull down unfortunately doesn't work, but you have round robin, which will equalize out over time. You have most idle, meaning whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call that comes in. Least calls, which is whoever has the least amount of connected calls gets the next call. And then least offered, which is the combination of missed and connected calls. Right, whoever has the lowest amount of that gets the next call. Hold treatment, basically you can upload a media file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded under 1 megabyte. You can also choose from any files that are already on the account. The Pro queues can have multiple media files play, as well as announce like the position in line or the expected wait time. Queue timeout measured in seconds. That's how much time that people can wait on hold, right? Your inbound callers. Queue call limit is how many people can wait on hold, right? So I'm saying, hey, only 4 people can wait on hold. Now, that's on top of callers who are already speaking to staff members. Right? Timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means if I have no staff members logged in and a call comes into this queue, the system will treat that caller as if they've hit that 3,600 seconds. The escalation call flow after timeout. So after that 3,600 seconds, what do you want the system to do with the call? Right? If you selected none, that means the system just ends the call. Right? But you can send it to like another queue, a media file if you wanted, a user, a group, voicemail, etc. The zero out call flow, if you keep this at none, right, then your customer has to wait on hold or hang up. Right? If you select something in this pull down, right, another group or a voicemail box, then that enables the ability to press 0 for your inbound caller. Right? And then they would go to the destination. Agent behavior, agent recovery time measured in seconds. Basically, after an agent is done with a call, how much time do you give them before the system offers them a second call from the queue? Right? Normally 0 to 30 is what's typical, and that just gives staff members the time for a drink of water or finish their notes, etc. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, this means if one of your staff members misses a call from the queue, the system marks them away, meaning they're not going to be offered any calls again until they mark themselves as ready once more. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds. The default is 20, which is, again, typically plenty of time for a VoIP phone. So then you would click create queue or save changes in my case. Once you've created a queue, over here on the left, you want to click on the members icon, right? Person with a headset. And then here you see your staff members who are available in queues. Right? So these 4 people can be assigned to my queues. If I click on manage members, now I see the people, other staff members who could be in my queues. Right? So for instance, I can click on their name and then click add to queues or add to members. Oh, looks like some testing might have been done. Oh, yep. All right, so we'll leave that alone for the time being. But once you've done assigning people as part of your queue members, you go back to your queues. And if you click on a queue, you would add agents. So then you can click and drag staff members over to be in a queue. Click on save changes. If I click on managers, right, I can say, hey, here's a manager too. But you have to have assigned agents to make them managers. Now for your staff members, right, they would come in, log into dash.virtualpbx.com, click on ACD queues. Then they would click on begin session. You see here, I'm red, marked away. Then they want to click on the little phone icon and select their VoIP phone. Right? It should be green, ideally. Click on the phone icon again, and then they can mark themselves as ready. So now they're green, and so they can take calls. If my little bar turns light blue, that means I am being offered a call. If I'm a dark blue, that means I'm on an inbound queue call, right? So connected call. If I'm yellow, that means I am on an external call, meaning someone called my extension number directly, or I'm making an outbound call back out to a customer. And then if I'm gold, I'm on a wrap-up time. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules, just so. Click edit here to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. So this first one I named 408. I selected this 408 phone number that's already on my account. And then I said, hey, here's my rule. Basically, whenever the area code that someone dials out on their VoIP phone starts with 408, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to match this phone number. And then click on create. The other way you can do is this one here, where I'm saying, make my staff members dial a feature code, in this case, *550. And when they do that, the system will change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Right. So the feature code, puts more work on my staff, right? Because they have to know the feature code for whatever phone number they're going to use or want to have displayed. Whereas the area code is easy, right? It just says, hey, I just dialed an area code and it changed it for me automatically. Monitor, also a plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members, right? Whether they're on an inbound call or outbound call, etc. Doesn't matter what phone they're using. You'll be able to see their status. You can choose like who's available versus who's busy. You can select the device as well. Over here, you can see who's on active inbound calls, right? Each call will have a little box and showing who they're speaking to. For the part calls, if there's a part call, it will show the name of the person and the parking spot number. Recording manager. This will either take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, so new tab. That just uses your Dash login to log in, and then you can see your call recordings there, play them back, delete them, etc. Or if you're using AWS storage, it will if it's linked properly, it will show your call recordings on AWS, so you can play them back from here. That last one does require, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. You would have to have an AWS account set up, and you also have the AWS integrations enabled on your account. Recording webhooks. This is a plan-specific feature. You actually want to talk to our sales team. This allows you to create links between your Dash account and other software. So like Zapier, for example, you have to have a Zapier account in that case, right? But essentially you create new hook, and this is some level of programming. It's a little beyond me. You can take a look at developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code and examples of what we've linked to Dash to. Also, on our YouTube channel, we have an introduction to Zapier webinar under the videos, so I encourage you to take a look at that if you're interested. But it just expands the usage of your Dash account. And then lastly, the user portal. Every user has their own individual user portal. You notice here, this, when we looked at the voicemail manager, under my voicemail box, there were 3 messages, but one was deleted. As a user, I can only see the 2 that are listened to, right? Not the deleted message. I can play it back. I can download it. I can click on the box to change its status if I want to get rid of it. Call history. I can see my call history and I can adjust it. So then I can see my full call history. The fax tab only shows up if you have your own fax box. So you can see your fax history. The contact list, this shows me the other users on the account, the other auto attendants, the groups, their extension numbers, etc. Conference tab. So for users that have conferencing enabled, over here, they can update their moderator and participant PIN numbers. Then they have the option, do people come in muted or deafened? Are people playing entry and exit tones? When you're in a conference, you can come to this page. Here, you can invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock the conference so no one else can join, mute everybody, unmute everybody, and then hang up the conference, right, and the call. Also, while you're in a conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box. So as a moderator, you can mute specific people or kick them out, right, or unmute them. And then we have the settings and devices, so they can see the status of their devices. Over here, this is where your users will enable call forwarding. and they can set up the +1 area code and phone number, and then click on save. All right, here's the option to send voicemails to email so they can make sure they're going to the right email address. And that is everything. And I don't see any questions. I'm sorry this ran a little long today. Apparently I'm a little rusty. But we'll be back here next week at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesday. I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.